Hi, Charles, it's SirBookSage here. I'm just checking to see if this is actually live, like it says it is. So I'm actually trying out StreamYard. This is the second time I've used it. First time I used it was like last year, so give me just a moment here. Fun times. So anyway, this is what I hope will be the start of a kind of Sunday afternoon weekly live stream that I've been wanting to do for quite a while on the channel. And if I can actually get to my channel and make sure that I am live, that might help. Okay, I am live. Good. Hi, Charles is SirBookSage here. Welcome to my channel. This is sort of a semi-inaugural Sunday live stream that I hope to make a regular thing on my channel. And I figured for the very first one, I would start off kind of talking about Season 2 of The Wheel of Time. Now, I've read the entire Wheel of Time book series. I consider it one of the all-time great fantasy series. And if you're a fantasy fan and you have not read The Wheel of Time, I highly, highly recommend it. And now, it's not easy for someone to write a 14-book series, and 15, I guess, if you count A New Spring, and to have it all work and pay off at the end. But The Wheel of Time is a series that absolutely sticks the landing, and it's worth the entire read. One of the things in particular that makes it worth it is the last battle. Now, I don't know if you've ever read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. And I'm not here to talk about the plot or the author or anything, but in that book in particular, there's a character named John Gaul. And you keep hearing about this character as you get deeper into that book. And it's a question that gets repeated: who is John Gaul? And it's actually a phrase that kind of entered the American sort of cultural zeitgeist back in the day. Like you would see like graffiti, like, you know, Frodo lives, Clapton is God, who is John Gaul? That kind of stuff you'd see pop up. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is when the character finally walks onto the page, the author like lives up to that moment, and the guy delivers like a 50-page uninterrupted speech in the book. And the Wheel of Time's John Galt, if you will, is the last battle. You hear about the last battle from book one, and you spend over 10,000 plus pages working your way towards this event that has to ultimately happen. And when you finally get there, every expectation that I had built up over decades and 10,000 plus pages, not only were all those expectations met, but that whole scene blew me away. The last battle chapter in the final book, I consider one of the great fantasy chapters ever written, and I highly, highly recommend the book. Now, since season 2 is premiering September 1st, and we're actually getting the first 3 episodes, which is, I like getting a multi-episode premiere, but 3 episodes when it's an 8-episode season is kind of a lot. So I'm curious as to why 3 at a time. Though they might have done that with season 1. I know it was at least, I think there was a couple of episodes released with season 1, so it might just be a thing that they're doing with this show in general. So, hard to say. I've been kind of trying to stay away from reading about the series, like from reading about the showrunner and talking about it, because I want to try to be as surprised as I can be. Now, normally, if you've read the books, you shouldn't generally have any surprises, but there was so much changed in season 1 from what was actually in book 1 that, you know, at this point I have no idea what to actually expect for a season 2. No clue what I'm going to be getting at this point. So it is really, really hard to say what we're going to get here in season 2, other than what we've seen so far in terms of the promotional materials and the recent trailer that was released, which, as far as trailers go, was actually a pretty good trailer. I enjoyed the season 2 trailer. I thought it was very well done. And it did what a trailer is supposed to do, you know. Lie to its audience, basically lie to its audience to entice them to watch. Now, give me a moment here. Just got to check one thing, and let's hope this doesn't double up. Okay, I'm good. All right, so anyway, Season 2, we are getting book-specific things in Season 2. That's clearly happening. Because just from the promotional materials, and again from the trailer, we do have the Shan-Chan, we do have the Damane and with their Adam, and we have a confrontation coming, particularly with Rand and High Lord Turok. And we also have the hunt for the Horn of Valere, and Matt's dagger. Now, I don't know what we're getting in terms of Matt and the dagger in this show, because in book 1, once Moiraine finds out that Matt took a dagger from Shadar Logoth, she uses her Aes Sedai to magic, if you will. She wields Sidar to kind of temporarily give Matt some sort of protection. She can't break the dagger's hold on him because it's just too powerful. And it's really old evil. And she's just, one Aes Sedai isn't enough to break that hold. But, and it isn't, I think, until book 3 where that finally is like the Amerlin and a circle of Aes Sedai all linked together to finally get that dagger separated from him. However, in the show, in Season 1, Moiraine mentions that she says that she broke his connection to the dagger. So I don't know if that's what they're doing in the show, and he isn't connected to the dagger anymore, and therefore is not in peril of dying if the dagger is away from him for too long. Because in the books, it's Matt has to get this dagger back. It's what leads Matt to to join Ingtar and Uno and the Shienarans to go after the Horn and to go after the dagger as well, because Padden Fane took both. But in the show, I believe Matt is just at Tar Valon, and I don't think he's even going to be part of this hunt. I haven't seen anything to indicate that he's with Perrin and Loyal and Ingtar and the Shienarans on their way after Padden Fane. So he clearly does end up in the same room as the dagger. We see that in, I think, the trailer. There's a moment where he's looking at it sort of in fear while it's on the table. But I don't know that this issue where he has to have the dagger or he's going to die, like the books, is actually in play in the show. They haven't really done a good job of explaining it, and rightfully so. You know, the COVID hit, the production was shut down, and when they resumed for the final 2 episodes, they didn't have the actor. He wasn't there in production anymore. So they had to scramble around not having one of their main characters. So I understand why they just kind of left that up in the air. But I'm hoping that in Season 2, you know, they really take the time to start fixing the things that broke for all sorts of various production reasons, like the pandemic being a big one. And because one of the things I thought they did a really poor job of in Season 1 was particularly writing the character of Matt. Now, I loved the actor, Barney Harris, I believe. I think he did a great job playing the character he was given to play. It's just the character he was given to play wasn't really Matt from the books. He just was not well written. Perrin wasn't well written either, though I thought individually the actors all did really good jobs with what they were given to do. I just hope we get a much more accurate, book-accurate Perrin, book-accurate Matt. We're actually going to begin to get what should have been there in Season 1 in terms of with Perrin and meeting Elias and the wolves and all of that stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. But with Matt and the dagger, again, we have no idea if that holds true still, where he has to get that dagger back and then have the full, group of Aes Sedai break his connection to it. Don't know. With the logistics of Season 2's story, I don't really know how they're playing this, because Perrin is with Ingtar and them and Loyal going after the Horn and the dagger, Rand is on his like Crocodile Dundee walkabout, go who knows where, wandering around the continent, and Matt is in presumably Tar Valon, like either recuperating or whatever. So, and in the book, all three of them are with the Shienarans chasing after Pat and Fane, trying to get the horn and the dagger back. So characters are scattered all over the place in the show that aren't scattered in the books. So I just don't know how they're going to be presenting their stories. So it's just a little odd the way things are currently in the show. And these are changes that they kind of did to themselves. So they're creating these logistical like hurdles that don't really need to be there. But this is one of the drawbacks that happens when you take a book series and you do a live adaptation. There's always going to be changes. Like one of the changes that we see coming up in season 2, for example, is Perrin and Loial and Ingtar and Uno and the Shienarans, they're going to be captured by the Seanchan. Now, that doesn't actually happen in the books. They don't get captured by them. There's a big battle that takes place, and they're just in the middle of this whole giant fight. But for the show, it kind of makes sense to have them actually be captured because it raises the stakes for the episode, for the show, raises the peril that some of these our fan favorite characters are going to be in. And when Matt comes like strolling in at the end, which is kind of what the trailer implies, that he's going to finally arrive and like save his friends and save the day by facing off against Turok. It kind of thematically fits for how they seem to be playing it in this, what looks like they're going to be playing it in this upcoming season. So I'm not adverse to Perrin and Uno and them getting captured. So I mean, that's a kind of a tweak from book to live action that you expect to see. A change from the book to live action that I'm not happy about is apparently instead of Perrin meeting Gaul, because in the books, Perrin comes across an Aielman in a cage in the middle of this village. And this is in book 3, actually. And he feels sorry for the Aielman, so he releases them. And then they get attacked by White Cloaks and have to defend themselves. And this is how he meets Gaul, of the Stone Dog sept. And Gaul is a pretty cool, like, supporting character in Perrin's whole, like, story arc throughout this series. But so far in the show, I haven't seen any indication that we're even getting Gaul in season 2, or if we're getting Gaul at all. For all I know, they might just be cutting his character out completely. That actually wouldn't surprise me in the least if it's Bane and Chiad, and not Bane, Chiad, and Gaul, it's like it is in the books. So we'll see, because in book 3, in chapter 33, is when Perrin meets Gaul. And in chapter 38, Aviendha, Bane, and Chiad, who we see here in season 2, they actually come across Nynaeve, Elaine, and Egwene when those three are off on a mission from, like, given to them by the Amyrlin Seat. And I don't want to go into spoilers as to what they're doing. That's going to come up later. But in the show, it's Aviendha, Bane, and Chiad meeting Perrin. So they're making pretty big changes here. And I don't recall that Perrin and Aviendha ever have an actual direct conversation in the entire 14-book series. As far as I remember, I don't think they ever actually have a conversation with each other at any point, because they're kind of on different sides or different parts of what's happening in the books. Aviendha is very tied into the Wise Ones, the Aes Sedai, Rand, and Perrin is very tied into helping the Two Rivers and helping people, and they just have very different paths. So Aviendha and Perrin don't have much opportunity to really cross paths and interact in the books. But here in the show, that's who they're going to be meeting. And my biggest worry from day one, from when I heard that they were going to be doing a live-action Aiel, live-action Wheel of Time, my biggest worry from day one has always been, how in the world are they going to pull off a live-action Aiel? Now, for those of you who've never read the books, the Aiel are basically Robert Jordan's Fremen. if you come across a desert warrior tribe in a fantasy series, that's that author's Fremen. And the Fremen are, you can't really see them back here, the Dune books. So, which if you saw Dune 1, you saw them in that first part of that first movie. And what Robert Jordan did was his Desert Warrior tribe, he tried to make unique, tried to have them stand out from other kind of Desert Warrior tribes you'll encounter in other fantasy series. And the Aiel are a sort of an amalgamation of a few different very different cultures. Like there's some, I think, Zulu, some like early Japanese, there's, I think, Apache in particular in terms of Native American, and there's some also like Irish, Scottish influences, and societally structured, they're structured like early Irish and Scottish clans as well. And this is all melded together to make a very complex and complicated people. And people that in the hands of a poor writer will come off very like cartoony and very clunky. They're not easy to do at all. And that's going to be the biggest challenge really for this series, is how in the world are they going to get the Aiel right? Because to pivot for a moment, if you've ever watched the Cowboy Bebop anime, like when you heard live action Cowboy Bebop was coming out, I think everyone pretty much went immediately, it's like, how in the hell are they going to do a live action Ed? Like, how in the world are they going to pull that off? And if you watch the Netflix series, the live action one, you'll see, well, they really didn't even try. We got Ed for like the last 10 seconds. And in those 10 seconds, you probably see why they didn't do Ed in the show. Because Ed is a very anime-specific kind of character that is extremely hyperbolic, extremely exaggerated, extremely over the top, and vastly entertaining in the anime itself. Ed is such a great character, a lot of fun. But that's the kind of a character, like, how in the hell do you do that live action and have it work? And while the Aiel are not Ed, that kind of completely over-the-top, caricaturized people, the Aiel are not easy to get right in live action. And it is my biggest worry. But but it's going to be very, very interesting. And I lost my chain of thought there. All right, let me circle back to see, because before I went on the Cowboy and Bebop tangent, I was heading to a point. Oh, yes, the Aiel. Now, Robert Jordan took all these disparate cultural elements, brought them all together to form this people. And then he decided to make them, in terms of ethnicity, the Aiel are Celtic. They're basically early Irish and early Scottish people. They're pale skin, light eyes, light hair. And he did this for a very specific reason, to make them unique. He created a people who should never live in a harsh desert environment. Like, that's the last place on a planet someone, like the Irish or Scots should never be living like in the Sahara Desert. But not only do they survive there, over thousands of years living in the threefold land, they found a way to thrive. And they're that sort of identity as to who they are is foundational, because it speaks to their will and determination as a people, that they somehow manage to like excel where they should never even be able to survive. So it makes the Aiel pretty unique in terms of desert warrior people in fantasy. And this is something that I was disappointed in season 1, is because Rand is half Aiel. And in the books, Rand pretty much stands out. Like when you go to the Two Rivers and you stop in Emmons Field, there's the people in that general area, the Two Rivers people. It's like you recognize, okay, that's a Two Rivers person. That's someone from Camelin. That's someone from Karheim. There's different areas, obviously, across the world have different looks to them. And then there's Rand. Like, you'd be walking through Emmons Field on the way to the Wine Spring Inn. You'd be looking around, and then suddenly you'd see this like 6'5", tall, gangly, pale guy with red hair, and you're like, what in the world is an Aielman doing out here in the middle of nowhere? And they really didn't lean into that in the show at all. I mean, there's nothing about the actor just visually that makes him like starkly stand out from the rest of his friends and just in people around him in general. Because the Aiel live on the other side of this mountain range in the Threefold Land. They've lived there for thousands of years, separate from the rest of civilization. And it was something like 20 years ago, the last time they crossed the spine of the world, because they showed up to basically kill someone and tore through anyone and everything that tried to get in their way until they killed who they wanted to kill, and then they went home. And so everyone knows them. Everyone knows what an Aiel looks like, and everyone's terrified of them. So Rand, like, people notice Rand because he's Aiel, half Aiel, and the Aiel part of him is basically visually the dominant part of him. But in the show, they barely even mention it at all. Loial kind of says, "Oh, you're an Aielman," when he meets him in season 1. But that's roughly about it when it comes to just giving the Aiel their sort of distinctive visual look that they're supposed to have. Because it's more than just the spears and the clothes. Like, you recognize an Aiel. You could put an Aielman in a potato sack and you're going to know it's an Aiel. But anyway, it would be kind of ironic if the most Aiel-looking Aiel in the show turns out to be Tigraine, who was the pregnant Aiel woman we saw in the cold open of season 1, Rand's mother. And ironic because she's not actually Aiel. She's from Andor. She left her people because of this sort of prophecy, went into the Threefold Land to find the Maidens of the Spear to become one of them. Because she was told that she had to do this, otherwise, or the world would end, kind of stuff. So she ends up going out there and somehow manages to not die. And then the maidens just are so fascinated by her, they take her in and then eventually train her, and she becomes a Maiden of the Spear. So she's not ethnically Aiel, but she's lives this whole Aiel life. But they made her look Aiel, so that like just the casual viewer who's never read the books, as soon as you see this woman with these spears in this opening of episode 7, you're going to say, "Oh, that's an Aiel." Okay, and so now you know generally what to be looking for as the series goes on. So it's just kind of ironic. It will be ironic if she ends up being the most Aiel accurate looking Aiel in the show, but we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, we're getting Bane, Chiad, and Aviendha here in season 2. The casting for all three, I mean, what I was looking at the photo of the three of them, and what I learned from the photo is that the showrunner and the show in particular, they don't seem to care about all the little details. So they seem to think, okay, just we put the black veil and give them spears, and that's Aiel. And they seem to be a little bland looking to me. But that's just my first impression. I don't know. I haven't seen them actually in action yet, so we'll see how they do in the show. But like, if I wasn't told that was Bane, Aviendha, and Chiad in the photo, I would have no idea. I would just think it's 3 Aiel, but no Aiel in particular, because they didn't bother giving Bane, Aviendha, and Chiad their like distinct visual like markers. Like Bane has like this like bright red hair, and I think Chiad has like a gold, like kind of golden hair, and Aviendha's is like a deeper red, and they're all of them are short. The Maidens of the Spear keep their hair shorter. It'll be shoulder length at absolute most, and probably shorter than that. But in the show here in the promotional photos, they all have long hair, and that's so. We're already seeing that there's a lot of little details that should be there that the show just doesn't seem interested in. And things like that worry me, because when you start seeing that the show doesn't pay attention to details that the author made a point to make sure were there, you start to get worried about what kind of adaptation you're going to get. I mean, there's I think the story about, I don't know if it was Van Halen or whatever, with the M&Ms in their contract, where I forget what color it was. They wanted a bowl of M&Ms in the dressing room, no like brown M&Ms or green M&Ms, whatever it was. And when you first heard about this, it sounds like a pretentious thing. But they did it because when they walked into the dressing room, saw the bowl of M&Ms, if there were no green or no brown, whatever color they specified, they knew they were in good hands. They knew the production team that was handling their tour were highly professional and really good at their jobs. They walked in and saw the M&Ms, and they were green M&Ms galore or brown, whatever color. Then they knew, okay, these are not like the professional level we need. So we'll know for next time, don't hire these people. So a little thing like that. And as someone who's read the books and, these descriptions, particularly for Bane and Chiad and Gaul, who's MIA at this point, these are characters we're going to be with for quite a while. And so we all have, there's plenty of artwork, fan art of all these characters out there based upon the book descriptions. So we'll see. So I don't know. I just hope they're well written. Now, there was a leaked script about a year ago that I think was for just audition. So it's simple script that apparently was Perrin talking to what presumably is Avienda. And I'm hoping that was just a very generic, dumbed-down script for just a first-pass audition, just to do a simple read between an actor and an actress to see if there's any chemistry. Because if that's the dialogue that's going to be in this show, oh man, yeah, I'll probably have a lot to say when that episode gets here. But I don't know. So, but again, the Aiel remain my biggest worry and have been from day one. So not happy that, because by having Avienda, and I know I'm jumping around a bit here, by having Avienda, Bane, and Chiad meet Perrin instead of Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine, that changes things pretty significantly in some ways. I mean, for Bane and Chiad meeting Perrin here, that's fine because they end up kind of being supporting cast in a lot of Perrin's story in many ways. They're part of the people who surround Perrin as he moves deeper into the story. But again, Avienda meeting Egwene and them is really important in terms of both of their characters, because they're going to end up spending a lot of time together later on, particularly in apparently season 3, and now this gets into the logistics of season 2 itself. I saw recently that the showrunner wants season 3 to be book 4, The Shadow Rising. That's the book for minor, slight spoilers. Let's say Rand and Matt and Moiraine and Lan and Egwene in particular, they go with some of the Aiel they were meeting here into the Threefold Land. They go into the Aiel's land because, Rand is looking, there's prophecies of the dragon and all this stuff. And the Aiel are looking for what they call he who comes with the dawn, the Kara Karn, which is sort of their prophetic, hero. And so they end up in that book going into the desert. And a whole bunch of stuff happens in that book. Book 4 really is the book where the Wheel of Time takes a step up. And you start to realize that, okay, we're actually reading something exceptional here. This is going to be one of those all-time great stories. That's the book that really begins to open up that thought process that, okay, this is really that good. Which it is the seminal book in the early movement of the Wheel of Time, in my opinion, anyway. And so he wants that to be season 3. And now there's no way in hell that we're going to get the finale of book 2 and the finale of book 3, The Dragon Reborn, here in season 2. It's just not possible to do the confrontation at Falma and the confrontation at the Stone of Tyr. So if he wants to have book 4 be season 3, then that means he's probably going to have to take the events at the Stone of Tyr with, was it Kalendor, I think, and have that happen after Rand goes to the desert first. So, and In terms of the story in general, I guess technically the show probably could move the Stone of Tyr until after the desert. That kind of makes sense. That's one thing you can kind of shift around. Because having him go into the desert and then have an Aiel army and then take the Stone of Tyr, afterwards, you can work that logistically in the story. You can't, however, combine Falma and the Stone of Tyr here in Season 2. There are other parts where maybe you could say, okay, instead of having the Shan Chen take Falma and set up shop in Falma, maybe they set up shop in Tyr. But because of Tyr being so specific to the dragon prophecies and the world building of the story, that is something that the show can't do. Hold on a sec. So that's something that the show can't do. They can't combine Falma and Tyr because Tyr is very, very specific in terms of world building and plot and prophecy, particularly around the emergence of the Dragon Reborn on this sort of scene. So the only way to really have the Shadow Rising be Season 3 is to just bump the Stone of Tyr until afterwards. But there's a scene in the Stone of Tyr that has to happen before Rand and Moiraine and Mat go to the desert. I'll just say there's a red door frame. It's a ter'angreal, and Mat goes into it, and a whole sort of thing happens to Mat in there. And that scene has to happen before he goes to the desert. But what I'm worried about, and because Rand goes in and Moiraine goes in, all three go in independent of each other, but we only see from Mat what happens to Mat. Rand sees something apparently completely different. Moiraine sees something completely different. We're not shown what they see. But what I'm thinking about now is if they bump the Stone of Tyr till after Rand, they go to the Threefold Land after Ruidian, after the Karakarn stuff. I'm starting to think that they're gonna just combine the two doorways, the one in Tyr and the one in Ruidian, just together, and have Mat's two separate sort of scenes all just be one big scene in Season 3. So I'm worried that they're going to do that. So, but that seems like something that the show would probably try to do. Rather than do two different ones, I can see them combining them into one. Though that's going to be a bit of a weird logistics because Rand kind of needs to know whatever it is he learns. We don't see it up front directly. And Moiraine as well. Both learn things that they need to know before going into the desert. So we'll see. But this is the problem with the show making so many changes like they did in Season 1 from the books. It's, on one hand, it's good that it's hard to predict what we're going to get in Season 2 because it makes it, like, hopefully interesting for book readers that we could still be surprised. It's just the biggest challenge is, are those surprises going to be good surprises and done in a good way? Season 1, a lot of the surprises in Season 1 were not good surprises and not done in good ways. So we'll have to see what happens in Season 2. But from what I've heard also, Season 2 opens up 5 months after the end of Season 1. So again, going back to Mat and the dagger, it doesn't seem like Mat is still attached to the dagger at this point like he is in the books. Because if he's separated from the dagger for 5 months, I mean, Mat would be dead. It was clear cut in the books that he can only be apart from that dagger for a certain period of time before it will kill him. So we'll see. I don't even know what Mat's going to be doing because I'm hoping Tom Maryland shows up in Tar Valon and he helps Mat get out of there and they sneak down to the docks and we get Bail Doman because we didn't get Bail in Season 1 like we were supposed to. So I'm hoping we get him here in Season 2. And he would be an easy way for Mat and Tom, let's say, to get to Falme in time to be there for the finale of what presumably is the Season 2 finale. Because, again, I'm not going to spoil for non-book readers, but there's a certain event that happens at Falme in the books involving Mat that has to happen again, you cannot tell this story without this particular moment happening. So the show is going to have to get Matt to Falme at some point in this season. And hopefully Tom showing up and them sneaking to the docks and encountering Bail Dolman and sailing down to Falme would be the way it goes. Because I can't imagine that they're not going to give us Bail. I mean, at some point, the guy has to show up at some point. I just can't imagine he's not going to show up at all. So he didn't in season 1, but they made different choices in terms of how they split everyone up at at Shadar Logoth. I think they really hurt themselves by just not having Tom there from the beginning. Because in the books, Tom shows up in the Two Rivers. He shows up at Emmons Field. You know, Padden Fane is the peddler. He kind of shows up. Tom Maryland is a gleeman. He shows up because it's they're heading to Beltane. It's this, this is like holiday. So we have these kind of people who are just fate and the threads of the pattern are pulling there. And then obviously Moiraine and Lan show up. So Tom is there when the Trollocs attack, and Tom I was like, I'm going with you guys. I'm just following you guys. So he's there pretty much up until the attack with the Fade, where it looks like, he sacrifices himself to save Matt and Rand. So, but the show, I think, really hurt itself by just not having him from the beginning, because, as if you're just a show watcher, you really don't know Tom's character at all, so there's nothing invested, I would imagine, as far as that character goes for you, if you just watched the show and you've never read the books. But Tom is a pretty integral part of the story in the books. He plays a pretty significant role all throughout because of, let's just say there's a bit more to him than meets the eye. So I'm hoping, he does come back early enough and that he actually finally gets to start being the Tom in the books. Because, again, nothing like his character in the books at all, which was one of my bigger disappointments of season 1 was having, the changing Tom Maryland's character so much from the books. It's just, again, strange choices to make. Now, all that said, there's a lot of things that I'm looking forward to. I'm hoping we get Lan and Rand at some point where these two get to actually spend some time together. Because Rand is walking around with a heron blade sword, and the kid has no idea how to really use it properly. And in the books, Lan starts training him on sword fighting, like right away, as soon as they leave the Two Rivers. Lan is like, okay, nightly drills. We got to, you're walking around with this blade, you got to learn how to use it. And this bond between the two of them, is one of my favorite parts of these early books, where, it's an opportunity for Lan to kind of take Rand under his wing, and he understands what's coming for Rand in a way, as does Moiraine. So Lan is doing what he can, to try to get this kid ready. Because he's the Dragon Reborn, the world's going to be coming for him. And especially walking around with the heron blade, marked blade, a lot of people are going to be stepping to you and challenging you as a result. And we really got hardly nothing of that in the first season. And I don't know where Lan is even going to be in season 2. Him and Moiraine are doing who knows what. Rand is off doing who knows what. So I don't understand how this fight is supposed to even happen between Rand and Turok if Rand hasn't been going through some pretty heavy training by Lan. So I don't know. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do when we get to that confrontation in the show. Because even with all that training from Lan in the books, it's still one of the more kind of far-fetched moments, if you will, in those early books is that sort of sword fight between Rand and Turok. Rand really probably isn't anywhere near as good to try to hold his own against someone like Turok. But, it's an early scene in this story, in this giant story that you can kind of, forgive and overlook the author. But I'm curious to see how they're going to do it here, because there's been zero time of Lan really drilling Rand, like day after day, night after night, every available moment. Lan is working Rand with that sword, putting him to his paces. You know, everyone wants to see like Cat Crosses the Courtyard. So, I imagine we want to see the scene between Lan and Rand before Rand has to go into that room and officially meet the Amyrlin seat. We know that meeting is coming. We see a little moment of it in the trailer. So are we going to get Lan's conversation with Rand? Are they going to let Rand in the show do what Lan does in the books? Because that's such a great scene. Because Rand is just saying these things that Lan has told him. Do this, say this, act like this, stand like this. And Rand doesn't know why. He's just doing what Lan told him, because Lan's drilled it into him. So it's a really interesting scene, especially when they say, okay, go away, kid. And then we see the Aes Sedai talking after Rand's left. And then we get to see like what Lan was having Rand do from their perspective, because they're like kind of exasperated. Like, who taught this kid how to act like this and how to say these like these water stuff? And so I just hope we get that scene, and it's somewhat close to the books. So, and I haven't seen any hide nor hair of Gawyn and Galad. There's apparently Galad has been cast. I don't know if it's 100% official, but there is a person who's supposedly going to be playing Galad, and he was apparently listed as Galad Trakand, which has a bunch of us worried, are we not even getting Gawyn Trakand? Because we have Elaine Trakand, the daughter of Andor. You're going to meet her in season 2. Her brother Gawyn, and Galad is their half brother. He's Galad Damodred, and but he's listed as Galad Trakand in the casting stuff calls or whatever. So the fear is that they're just eliminating Gawyn from the show. So I have no idea. I haven't heard anything about casting for Gawyn. Same with Gaul, which is why it doesn't look like Gaul's going to be in the show either at this point, though maybe in the future, who knows. And it would be really odd if they don't have both Gawyn and Galad, because both play kind of important roles and both, kind of take divergent paths once they get to the White Tower, because they've come to just train with the waters to basically level up their warrior skills. And I haven't seen any indication that they're going to show up with Elaine at the White Tower here in this season. And again, if it's 5 months later from season 1, for all I know, Elaine might already be at the tower at this point. Because I assume that it's going to, when we get to the girls, they're going to be just at the White Tower, novices, doing all that stuff. Elaine's going to be there. So I'm curious as to how they're going to handle all that. Because another big thing that they cut out of season 1 is Caemlyn. Because in the books, after they get separated, after Shadow Logoth, Rand and Mat figure out, well, okay, and I can't remember, is Tom with them at this point, that they need to go to Caemlyn, because that's the logical place that everyone is going to end up gravitating to. Stop in Caemlyn before you continue on your way to the White Tower. And a lot of what happened in Tar Valon in the TV show actually happens in Caemlyn in the first book. That's where Rand meets Loial, I'm pretty sure. That's where I think Logain is being paraded through the streets after he's been gentled. And I think Rand climbs up a wall in the city, and he's trying to look, and then he trips and falls backwards on the other side of the wall and finds himself inside the royal palace of Andor, where the Queen Marghese lives. And he meets Elaine and her brother Gawyn and their half-brother Trakand. And this meeting between Rand and these three really is like kickstarts their journeys for their characters. They pretty much get sucked into the threads of the pattern because Rand is such a strong Ta'veren. This meeting kind of binds them to fate in a sense. And it's kind of important that Elaine already knows Rand. She's met Rand. She has a connection to Rand before she goes to the White Tower to begin her Aes Sedai training. because there are decisions and chances Elaine's going to make here in season 2 that are informed by her knowing Rand, by her having met Rand and having this connection to him already. So I'm curious to see how they're going to kind of explain some of the things Elaine chooses to do, because in the show she hasn't even met Rand at all. She has no idea Rand even exists yet in the TV show. So that's kind of an odd thing to change, because this is like a early motivational aspect of Elaine's character and why she does some of the things she does, because she has this even burgeoning like connection to Rand. So to remove that is kind of odd, to remove like a something that motivates a character. Like they have to replace that motivation with something else. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do in that regard. Now, I am really looking forward to Nynaeve's accepted test. That's a great scene in The Great Hunt, in the second book. And one of my favorite scenes in that book. And from the looks of it, from little we've seen in the show, from the trailers and stuff, it looks like they're going to lean all in on that accepted test. And it's going to be pretty hardcore and brutal like it is in the books. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to the most here in season 2, is that whole part where Nynaeve becomes accepted. And because as far as season 1 goes, the Nynaeve was far and away my favorite thing in season 1. Some of the casting I think has been good. Some of the casting has been strange. Some of the casting here for season 2 seems to be a combination of both as well. Some good, some strange. And I don't think any of the main characters were very well written in the show compared to the way they were written in the books. But with the Nynaeve that she was given to play, I think it's Zoe Robbins. I thought she did a phenomenal job in season 1. She's far and away my favorite thing about that season. So I'm just hoping that season 2 will have a bit more accurate writing for these characters. Even if they're changing plot stuff, at least the characterization of how the character thinks and speaks and acts, they should try to keep that as consistent as possible to who these people are in the books, even if they're changing some of the things that are happening to them and the order that some of them are happening in. So, because they kind of let these characters get away from them. But I think season 1's biggest mistake was that whole, which one's the Dragon Reborn? They couldn't really do any proper characterization for any of these characters because they had that mystery getting in their own way. So you haven't, Perrin's main plot point for season 1, they just didn't do. Perrin was just there in season 1, tagging along with Egwene, which is what he does in the books too, but what Perrin's personally going through in book 1, they didn't do in season 1. They just cut it out, because if they started him down that road, him meeting Elias and then the wolves and the wolf dreams and all that stuff, then you would know right away, okay, well, he's obviously not the Dragon Reborn, otherwise they wouldn't be doing all this stuff with him. So that putting that fake mystery really hurt them in terms of letting these characters begin their proper journeys as people. They kind of had to keep them all tamped down to just keep this dumb mystery in place. So we're going to be getting here in season 2, from the looks of it, what Perrin should have had in season 1. Elias finally showing up and the wolves, and I'm assuming we're going to meet Hopper in season 2. So, because I'm a big fan of Perrin's whole story arc. He's the first character, I believe, in book 1 where we finally move away from Rand as the POV, because Rand is like the POV for like a good, I don't know how many, 20 chapters to start off the whole series. And then Perrin, I think, is the first other POV character we get before, and then we get Egwene, and then it's Perrin, Egwene, and Rand. And eventually that grows and grows and grows, and we eventually get Matt as a POV. But it starts off with, it's Rand for like a big chunk of book 1, or the first part of book 1, and then Perrin finally becomes a POV character. And Perrin's chapters are really, really interesting as he's beginning sort of this journey that they didn't even start, quite frankly, in season 1. So I really hope Perrin actually gets to be Perrin in season 2, and they start moving him towards his main conflict. Because you may have seen, if you looked up stuff about Perrin, you'll see a hammer and an axe. And this is Perrin's choice. He has to ultimately, eventually choose between the hammer and, being a blacksmith, creating things, or the axe, being a killer and killing things and destroying things. And this is the conflict that rages within him. He wants to pick up the hammer, but the reality of the world, means he needs to pick up the axe. So this is his conflict that drives his character. And this is why they gave him a fake wife to kill in season 1, because they took away his actual story and what he was actually internally dealing with and struggling with in season 1, because they needed this dumb mystery of who's the dragon. So they had to give him a fake thing for him to struggle over by giving him a wife and then having him kill her, because they couldn't give him his actual story, which we're now going to finally start getting here in season 2. So overall, I am actually looking forward to season 2. I mean, which may be surprising considering in the end, season 1 turned out to be a big disappointment for me. But when you could see the major impacts the pandemic had on them, it was just a train wreck late in their season. So, and then losing one of their actors, not having Matt available for the final 2 episodes, they really had to scramble and work around that. So I forgave them a lot for season 1 because of those like unseeable challenges. But season 2 is really going to be the tell. I don't think they had enough time after finishing season 1 and beginning to film season 2. I don't think they had enough time to really take in the feedback about a lot of the problems with some of the season 1 choices. So I don't know if there's going to be any kind of course correction here for season 2. No idea. Because from what I heard, someone mentioned the other day that they had filmed this had wrapped up filming sometime late in 2021. So if that's the case, and this has been in the can for that long, if that's accurate, then yeah, there wasn't any time for them to really sit down and absorb all the criticism. A lot of it legitimate, some of it just trolls being trolls. You're always going to get that with stories. Anywhere on the internet, you're going to have people who show up just to be idiots. But there was a lot of legitimate criticism that I don't think they had time to really take to heart and try to tweak. But we'll see. If season 3 is going to be The Shadow Rising, if it is going to be book 4, they have an opportunity there to really just stick to the story. If they're, instead of trying to jump around and jumble multiple books into a season like we're apparently going to be getting in this season. So, but there's so much that they have to fit in here. I can't for the life of me figure out how they're going to get everything they need to do in 8 episodes, if season 3 is indeed going to be The Shadow Rising. But we'll see. 3 episodes on September 1st, and I'm looking forward to them. I'm curious to see what we're going to be getting. My worry is, because they're so insistent, because Rosamund Pike is the star of the show, just in terms of name recognition. And when you have a known star, your marketing is going to revolve around that person to a large degree, because she's the known quantity. So you market who people know. So even though, yes, Rand is the main character, and they should feature Rand more than they've been doing, but it's not surprising that Rosamund Pike is front and center, because that's the star of the show. That's the name. Everyone knows the name Rosamund Pike if they pay any attention to movies and things. But I'm worried that the show is insistent upon making her the co-main character of the story. And my worry here is we're going to get Moiraine inserted into the season a lot more than she should be, because this early part of the books, Moiraine doesn't really have a lot to do. She's kind of off on her own, off screen. She's doing more digging and investigating and trying to find out information. So we don't see a lot of her in the book here at this point, because it's mainly focusing on the Emmonsfield kids. So they're really driving the story here in book 2. And Moiraine kind of just pops up a little bit. It's really the scene where, I think in Carhine it might be, where the Amerlin seat has come and Rand finally has his formal meeting with her. But outside of a couple of moments, Moiraine really isn't like actively present in this part of the story. So my worry is that we're just going to get a made-up plot for Moiraine for season 2, just to have her there. And with everything that they need to fit in this season, every moment they spend just making up stuff and putting it in is going to make it harder and harder for them to do the things that have to happen in this season. Because there's some, again, critical moments for the whole story that happen here that they have to get done. So we'll see. We got to get Matt out of Tarvalon and over to Falma for probably the single most important thing outside of what Rand's doing that has to happen in this early part of the story. So looking forward to it. So, and I'm really looking forward to, is it Donald Finn, I think, the new actor playing Matt. I'm hoping he's given a more book accurate Matt to play than Barney Harris was given. And again, I loved Barney Harris as Matt. He was just given a poorly written Matt, unfortunately. So, and for those who, again, not aware, I'm going to kind of wrap it up here on some final thoughts about Matt in particular. If, again, you've never read the books, there's a reason why Matt is, in many, many ways, like a fan favorite out of all these characters. Because he has, in some ways, just the most entertaining plot out of all of these people. All the people you're following from Emmonsfield. He has the most entertaining one in many ways. And his first couple of books, his plot is just tied into this dagger. But once he's separated from the dagger and that's put behind him, it's really, once he goes through that archway that I mentioned earlier, the red door frame, once he enters that red door frame, that's when Matt Cawthon's actual real journey in this whole story really begins. That's when the Matt everyone falls in love with really starts to emerge, is once he goes through that door frame and goes through a particular experience there. This is when Matt's story really kicks in. So I probably not expecting a lot of Matt this season, only because they kind of have to just get to where they can do that door frame scene. So we'll see. But hopefully they give Donald Finn, I think his name is, hopefully they give him some good Matt stuff to do. Because Matt's supposed to be on this hunt for the dagger and the horn. He is in the books. He isn't in the show. So they've got to at least get him there by the end. So we'll see. But I'm really looking forward to once he does arrive in Falma and what happens goes down. I'm looking forward to seeing that. You know the scene. If you read the books, you know the scene I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil this for anyone watching this who has never read the books and doesn't know what's coming. There's just a particular scene with Matt in the book near the end that is just going to be, if they do it right, it's going to be spectacular. So anyway, I will be doing a kind of discussion video after each season 2 episode airs. I watched season 1. I didn't do reviews of it because I didn't know what in the world we were going to get. So, but I am going to be like diving into each episode for season 2 as they come out. So September 1st, the first 3. Again, a little weird to release almost half your season in one shot, but it is what it is. Hopefully it's 3 good episodes. Hopefully it's 3 episodes that leave us really excited and feeling better about this show than season 1 left us. So anyway, with that, I want to hear from you down below. If you've only watched this show, what do you think of it so far? Do you have any guesses for where the story might be going for season 2? And if you have read the books, is there anything in particular from The Great Hunt or The Dragon Reborn that you really want to see on live action? this season, because they have to fit so much from both of those books in, if season 3 is going to be The Shadow Rising. Anyway, so leave those comments down below. I will be looking for them. I'll be responding to them. Any really cool, like interesting questions, I might just do like a video, make a video answer for. We'll see. But with that, I am actually going to go have dinner and probably get back to my reread and rewatch of The Eye of the World and season 1, because I'm going back through that. I want to finish the reread and the rewatch of season 1 before season 2 premieres, just to kind of refresh myself again. And I probably, knowing myself, even though I just reread The Great Hunt, I'm probably going to finish Eye of the World, finish watching season 1, and then I'm just going to probably listen to The Great Hunt all over again right before September 1st comes. So with that, because the sun is really starting to beam in from the window now, I am Charles the SirBookSage. Happy reading. And now I have to figure out how the hell to end a broadcast on StreamYard, since I've only ever used this software once before. And I hope the audio is actually pretty good this time. I unchecked tech stuff. I unchecked the noise cancellation thing at the end this time around, because with that on, it felt like it was crunching my audio. Anyway, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I will see you with my next video. And I will see you in the comments down below.